Hi, Alan Schimmel here for DevOps.com, DevOps TV, does 16 San Francisco, and we're here with our friends from HPE. We have Ashish Kuthiala, Olivier Jacques, who's been here now a number of times, and our last guest is
John Ediger.
John Ediger, and that was the easy name. The figure's the one I forgot. But gentlemen, thanks for joining us today.
Sure. Our pleasure.
So, doing a DevOps transformation, we often hear about how within an organization we had to get the dev team to work with the ops team, and maybe we had to get the security team or the QA team. But it was this one homogeneous organization that had silos within it, and we broke down those silos, and lo and behold, every once in a while it works and we get DevOps. Now let me take that scenario and put that on top of a fluid situation where you have this mammoth IT company, technology company, who is divesting themselves of units, like snakes shedding skin, while at the same time also acquiring Aruba or other companies and trying to break down those silos. And it seems like an impossible task, but yet this is your mission impossible.
That's our world. I think this is very interesting, and because there is one thing that we need to do is that we need to design for change. Mm-hmm. Change is not going to fall on us. We know that change is coming.
Yes.
We know, and actually for a fact, it's like every now and then we have quite big changes coming in. So it's all about being ready for that and not being scared about change, because we know change happens, and DevOps really helps for that.
Yeah, change happens, but at this kind of level, Ashish, it's hard enough just getting devs and ops to work together. What about devs and ops from different organizations?
So it's even before you talk about DevOps within different organizations, think about the challenge when you absorb a multi-billion-dollar company or spin it off into 2 or 3 different divisions and then merge it with other companies. You're looking at replicating IT functions, infrastructure, people, processes, as well as sometimes absorbing and merging them, right? Data centers, applications that are used, financial applications versus people applications. So some of these deadlines are non-negotiable because they're SEC deadlines.
Right.
You can't get there and say, oops,
yeah,
we need another 3 months. So you really need to find a different way to address this. And both John and Olivier can talk to this a little bit more because they're in the midst of it. But really, you really can't have what I call the traditional waterfall method to kind of, plan everything leading up to it, and on that day have this big release and say we are split into 2 IT functions, or we merge the 2 IT functions. I think this whole DevOps approach of do something, learn, absorb, be ready, take the next stage, and if it doesn't work, come on, do it again. The continuous improvement leading up to that date, I think really works. And this is what these guys are leading.
And we learned a lot from the HPE, HPI split.
Right.
That without that automation we put in, without the continuous delivery pipelines, the next set of divestitures, the next acquisition would have been impossible. So it's made things a lot easier. The automation, the ability to go from many weeks down to a few weeks for a deliverable has been a game changer for those that have done that.
Sure.
Yeah.
So if not but for that experience, this wouldn't be possible.
It would not have been close to possible.
But Olivier, to your point, at some level, you can't anticipate what's next, right? Because change happens, as you say. And so we have this change, and I guess it's a horse before the cart. Does DevOps, could you do the change without DevOps, or does the change force you to do DevOps?
I think there is a number of things that can happen, and the strategy that we chose to do was for the one that we're ready, was to actually, as we were changing, because we are separating, we are merging, as we are changing, also take the opportunity to adopt the DevOps technique. So we didn't add. Some of the teams invested in DevOps and in continuous delivery pipeline, infrastructure as code before the changes. So they were actually in a much better place than the others. But some didn't, and some actually took the opportunity of that change. So you have to find the spark that where there is so much that you need to do differently that this is the best time ever to adopt a new kind of methodology and DevOps.
While the patient is open, why not make
Right,
some
while
changes?
you're taking out the appendix, let's do open heart surgery.
That's right.
But so here's my take on it, though. Look, if we could operate on green fields only,
Right.
it would be much easier to do
Yeah.
DevOps on the green field, right? Because you'd have no legacy to worry about. But we don't. Most of us operate on brown fields, right? That are already sullied and dirtied and
Polluted.
farmed. And we need to, and we try to build on top of that brown field. But with you guys, or what's going on with HPE now, it's almost like brownfield muddled in with brownfield, and somehow that brownfield mixing with other brownfield creates not maybe a green field, but at least a new field to build on. Is that what it is, or are you still?
In some cases, that's the case, where we have an opportunity to start new in certain areas, certain assets or apps, we can do that. But the whole merger acquisition mania is actually also a challenge for shifting to DevOps. So we're trying to do this massive scale shift, and the priorities of a lot of the leaders have been, we have to hit this SEC deadline, we have to hit this milestone. And some of them don't want to think about DevOps at the moment, right?
Yeah.
So that creates another challenge. In other cases, like Olivier said, while they're at it, might as well jump in and make that change out of necessity. So we're on this journey, and we have a large diversity of applications, almost 1,000 applications. So it's kind of not one size fits all. It's kind of across the board. But the biggest change is getting the biggest challenge, getting the middle management to prioritize the DevOps transformation while all this merger stuff is going on. It's tough.
Interesting. So I'm going to come around and ask each of you a same question to each of you. So Olivier is going to go first. So you guys get the benefit of thinking about your answers. Olivier, what was the single biggest lesson you learned about DevOps related? The biggest learned lesson from this experience that you've been going through?
I think the biggest lesson is definitely that there is always hope. So even the team or the application that you could qualify, the most brownfield or even something like hugely monolithic, and maybe with people you don't even know they have the skills to do infrastructure as code and continuous delivery and the like. It's really about enabling them and allowing them to innovate, and they will do awesome. I have had actually exchanges with some of my colleagues, and I'm getting goosebumps. Sorry, but say, look, you just by enabling the way and authorizing us to innovate, you've changed our life for real. I mean, not the life for work, but
That's
it's
inspiring.
It's very
Here,
inspiring.
it sounds a little bit like a politician on the day before election day. Here. But good, inspiring hope. George?
So one of the things that I learned within this journey, this experience, is that it's not so hard to take one individual team and shift that team to a DevOps model. When you're scaling across hundreds of teams, I looked at those that were successful at doing that over a sustained period of time and those that weren't, and there were three key things that I found in the successful ones, and those were, there was a champion practitioner, someone that was on the team bottoms up, took control and was passionate. There was a leader a couple levels up or one level up that gave them the permission, the time, the support. And the third was they didn't try to do a big bang change. They actually did DevOps Kaizen. They did a small set of changes for 1 month and then picked the next and the next. And those teams that didn't have all three of those things, maybe they went after it for 2 or 3 months and then other things got in the way. But those three things to me were the big learning about how to make this sustainable.
Excellent.
And I want to expand on what John just said, which was the third thing, right? The Kaizen, or the continuous improvement. I think the biggest lesson for us, both doing this internally and working with customers, has been you need to enable the teams and you need to empower them. And you need to kind of let them go and innovate, like Olivier said. But it's the people, culture, collaboration piece of it. If that's where you make the most impact, all the other changes follow. And we have a research group inside of our team. We went and did this research, and we're finding out that, interestingly, those that are what we call informer leaders of DevOps, those who are experimenting all the time, learning from it, and making those Kaizen kind of changes, and continuously improving are making greater strides. They're delivering faster with actually even more higher quality. We are going to talk about this in our talk right after this, but those who are putting in like very formal DevOps rigid processes and driving them like that, they're actually not getting the same level of success. They're actually having higher quality, more problems with quality being delivered out than you would imagine. So this whole mindset of we're going to do something, learn from it really quickly, and enable our teams to kind of learn from it and adapt was our biggest learning, I would say.
You know what I find really interesting, guys, is, and I've been interviewing certainly you and Ashish, Olivier and Ashish now for 2 years, multiple times, so 3-4
It's
times.
a story.
And so I've seen the the never-ending story, and but what's interesting is this is your own internal story, right? Some people will watch this video and say, "Oh, I don't know if I want to see a video with HPE. They're gonna try to sell." Right, it's a vendor. But this isn't a vendor story. This is truly a DevOps transformation story. And I can only hope, and I guess you can too, that you guys will take the lessons you've learned internally here and help others, right? And that's part of why we do DOES, right? Part of what this is all about is people learning from each other's journeys and transformations. But this has been, yours is, I don't know if there's anyone here who can kind of match up with what you guys have been going through.
So I think I'd like to reiterate that, right? So HPE is changing, HPE Enterprise is changing. Just a year back, we were 350,000 plus people, and I think these guys ran one of the largest IT shops on the planet. And when we talk about scaling DevOps at an enterprise level, there cannot be a bigger scaling up of DevOps. And truly, when we work with our customers, we see that this story helps them resonate with what we do. And everything underneath is secondary, because we can then tell them what tools to use, what processes to use, what frameworks to use.
But that's secondary.
That is secondary, right?
Yeah.
So it really,
there's also an element of, if you haven't walked a mile in those shoes, you can't tell someone else how it feels to walk in those shoes for a mile.
Absolutely.
And so, guys, I wish you continued success, and we'll look for the next installment. This is sort of like Netflix. We'll binge watch next season, maybe this summer. But I wish you continued success with it and keep us posted. We'd love to hear always more about
our pleasure.
Your own journey.
Thank you.
Anyway, guys, the HPE team here at DevOps Enterprise Summit. This is Alan Schimmel for DevOps.com's DevOps TV.